أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين بالقاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Inshallah all of you are well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with another year of life and another opportunity to renew our vow and our commitment to the revolution of Abu Abdullah alayhi afdal salatu wassalam. So usually in most cultures, every night of the 10 nights of Moharram are dedicated to a particular individual or theme. And I was informed that the theme for this first night is the journey to Karbala. Historically, most of us are aware, if not of all of the explicit details, but we're aware of the details of the journey of Imam Hussein to Karbala, the envoy, Muslim ibn Aqil, and all the things that happened in Kufa and on the way to Kufa. So historically, we're very familiar with these matters. And I think that sometimes we do ourselves a disservice by focusing only on the events and the factual event, and this is what happened, and generally we look at the situation and this is what we learn from it. And sometimes what many of us do and what we have done historically is to leave it as a historical event. That this is something that took place and it was very tragic and we mourn over it, but the actual follow-up or the learning from this experience or the learning from this event tends to be quite limited. When I hear the phrase or the theme, journey to Karbala or reaching Karbala, I look at it not in the sense of trying to understand even more in-depthly the social and political situation that led to Imam Hussein getting to Karbala. Even a cursory understanding of that is usually sufficient. You've essentially understood the point. If you understand that he went there because Yazid was exceptionally corrupt and he stood against Islam, and Imam came to stand for Islam, and he had to make this sacrifice. He was the sacrifice of the Ahlul Bayt. So that when he made this stance, the other Imams wasn't necessary for them to make the same stance anymore. It's obvious. He made this stance, and then they pushed the commemoration of his martyrdom very, very strongly, so it's clear and very obvious that they supported this stance and they held this stance exactly themselves. So there was no need for every other Imam to go and do this. But when I hear the theme is going towards Karbala, I look at it in a different way. Karbala was an event, and when it took place, the participants in that event reached a station which is almost unbelievable. And when we look at the narrations and the different ziyarat, it's incredible the amount of reward and praise and the commentary about the position of the shuhada. You read some of these narrations and you'll see, it says, they have the reward of every prophet, every good person, every good action. And so when I hear this theme, I think in terms of how can anyone reach this stage? Is Karbala a historical event that's locked away? Or is there something more here? Every aspect of Islam can be applied and understood and lived now, here. Everything. Allama Tabatabai, one of our great ulama, those of you who are familiar, you are familiar with Allama Tabatabai. Those of you who are not familiar with Allama Tabatabai, he was a scholar of Irfan and Tafsir of Quran. And one of the most well recognized and respected amongst the ulama. Allama used to describe actions in Islam and actions, the fruit actions that we do, like praying, fasting, ziyarat, and these other things, as having three categorizations. So the first is what we call the Sharia. That means that the basic outline of that action. For example, if you wish to recite the ziyarat of Imam Hussein, has some rules. Has some things which are mustahab to do. The ziyarat itself, although implicitly it is obligation, it is not an explicit obligation. But it has some rules, and these rules we call the Sharia aspect of the ziyarat. Then he said, now there is a deeper aspect to it. Secondary aspect, which they call the tariqah, which means, tariqah means path, or the way. So he said, now for every action there is a secondary aspect to it. So obviously, ziyarat of Imam Hussein on the Sharia perspective, the outwardly perspective, okay, somebody's making salam to the Imam and they're reciting these words and it has these rules. And many people, when they see that, that's what they understand. The tariqah aspect generally tends to be a bit deeper, but it still tends to be things more of this world, really. For example, the ziyarat has very strong social implications, very strong political implications. It is a political stance that takes place. And the one who understands that understands the ziyarat much deeper, right? They understand that by reciting this, it is a position that is taken. And we have hadith that mention that the ziyarat of Imam Hussein shakes the throne of dhalim, of oppressor. And it's true, it's very true. And you can even see that today. When corrupt and despotic leaders see millions of people visiting Imam Hussein ﷺ, commemorating the story and situation of a man who refused to sit down in the face of tyranny, has a very strong message. And it scares oppressors. And it always has. But this is the tariqah aspect of it. Then there is a third aspect which we call haqiqah, which means reality. When we die, we face reality. What we see now is like a facade. It's not the real existence. When we die, the physical body is gone. And we're faced with who and what we really are. And the rituals and the commemoration of Muharram has a reality to it. And when I hear this aspect of journey towards Karbala, I think of these things. The reality of the commemoration of Karbala is very deep, has a lot of aspects that we don't often ingest or consider. When we recite Ziyarat Ashura, for example, at the very end, we mention, oh Allah, give us the shifa of Imam Hussein, Yawm al-Wurud. So it said, you give us the intercession of Imam Hussein the day that we enter, the day of entering. Yawm al-Wurud, according to hadith, is the day that you enter the grave. Means the time after death. But there is a reality to this grave which exists now and today. And it doesn't have to be just the same way that we mentioned that you don't need to regulate the historical aspect of the journey of Imam Hussein to that time. Okay, that's it. No, there is a political and social aspect which is applicable today. There is also a very strong spiritual aspect which is applicable today. I believe 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I gave a discussion, I had a lecture on dreams. And we mentioned that dreams are a window into the barzakh. And I brought a narration from Imam Kadhim about this. It means that aspect, the grave, the barzakh, is here now. And we see it and we interact with it. It's very real. We have these narrations that talk about the squeezing of the grave. We have these narrations which talk about the punishment of the grave. Many of those punishments can be felt now during life. It's very real. When you die, all that's left is yourself, your consciousness and your soul and your actions. When people think deeply, they get troubled by the thought of their own actions. It becomes sometimes difficult to bear. Look, in today's world, there are many people who have trouble sleeping because of their actions. They get claustrophobic at night. And it's all in their mind, considered to be psychological. But it's very real. Has even physiological effects for people. They feel it. Their heart rate goes up. They have panic attacks. Sometimes it can lead to fainting, other issues. It's very real. It has a very real effect on the person. This is one of the aspects of the grave in this world. And it means that preparing for Karbala, or journeying towards Karbala, is one of the aspects of it is self-purification. Those people who died with Imam Hussein, they were able to reach that maqam with Abu Abdullah. They got there through self-purification and self-sacrifice. When you recite the ziyar, when it says, Allah will give you the shifa on Yawm al-Wurud, it can happen now. Even when you go and you dig deep inside yourself and you're troubled with the acts of repentance, because it can be very hard to face the reality which is in front of you. Ziyarat of Abu Abdullah can help with that. You can get the intercession, makes it easier. There are many things which make it easier to do. And Imam Hussein's journey and his stance help with that in a number of different ways. So, my advice, and my time is about over. My advice is, don't be satisfied with the superficial. It's never going to be sufficient. If you're satisfied with the superficial, you will never grow. Ask yourself and think about it for yourself. Yes, perhaps you are praying, perhaps you are fasting, perhaps you are doing all of the wajibat, you're staying away from muharramat. But then you should ask yourself, what is the difference, for example, between myself and one of those people who was able to be there with Imam Hussein in Karbala? If we are all doing our actions and they're doing their actions, what's the difference? The difference is that there is a lack of depth on our part. There's definitely a lack of depth. And we sell ourselves short. We're only looking at the very superficial. We see that we look at the month of Muharram as a time just for decoration, for nice recitation. We cry, then we go home, and that's it. And we don't look at it in a much deeper way and try to actually benefit, to self-purify, to become better people, and to actually internalize the message of Abu Abdullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.